All right, let's dive right into this explainer and explore why so much of the well-meaning health advice we receive actually completely defies human anatomy. We all have that one aunt, uncle, or friend who's always forwarding health tips on messaging apps. But how much of that is actually true? Today, we are literally decoding health folklore using clinical science, separating the hard facts from the absolute fiction. Now, I know you've heard this one from a relative. Sit down to drink water or you're gonna ruin your knees. It's a total classic piece of generational advice. But let's look at what clinical science actually has to say about it. Is there some hidden danger here, or is it just an anatomical impossibility?
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1, the health myth epidemic, 2, diet and diabetes deceptions, 3, pregnancy and women's health, 4, the natural is safe trap, and finally, 5, protecting your health reality. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The health myth epidemic. Why traditional wisdom clashes with clinical science. We're starting off by acknowledging a hard truth. Look, we know health advice from family is rooted in care. It comes from a place of love, absolutely. But relying on hearsay and internet forwards, that can genuinely delay vital medical treatments and cause silent organ damage. The digital age has essentially taken ancient misunderstandings and amplified them, turning simple misconceptions into real, serious public health risks. Just to completely debunk that standing water myth right now, think about the actual anatomical pathway. When you swallow water, it goes strictly into your digestive tract, from your mouth to the esophagus, stomach, and intestines. It is literally anatomically impossible for that water to somehow leak into your knee's synovial fluid. Think about it like your home's plumbing. Pouring water down the kitchen sink while you're standing up doesn't cause that water to magically leak into the foundation of your house, right? It's the exact same logic with your joints.
Let's move to Section 2, diet and diabetes deceptions, unpacking the sugar, carb, and diabetes myths.
Now, widespread metabolic confusion is silently fueling a huge crisis. Here's the thing about insulin resistance. It's a metabolic condition where your cells stop responding effectively to insulin, and that is the primary driver for type 2 diabetes, regardless of your refined sugar intake. You could avoid desserts your entire life and still develop it. It's a complex vulnerability that can go into remission, sure, but it never truly vanishes. Thinking the disease is cured just because your blood sugar looks good on medication is kind of like turning off your AC because the room feels cool. Eventually, the house is going to overheat again. When we compare refined sugar and complex carbs like rice or roti, it's fascinating. Both of these ultimately break down into glucose. Refined sugar is basically high-octane fuel. It burns super fast and spikes your levels. Complex carbs act more like diesel fuel, burning slower. But here's the catch. They are both filling the exact same tank. You don't need to panic and cut out rice or chapatis entirely. You just need portion control and fiber to act as that slow-burning coal.
All right, Section 3, pregnancy and women's health, expecting mothers, breast health, and separating fact from fiction.
What's really interesting here is how clinical science completely dismantles the dietary rules forced upon expecting mothers. Get this, a pregnant woman only needs about 300 to 400 extra calories a day. That is the equivalent of a small snack. It totally shatters that whole eating for two fallacy. Growing a baby is like building a small extension on a house. You don't need to double your daily shipments of raw bricks. You just need a small, steady supply of high-quality materials. Honestly, overeating just spikes the risk of gestational diabetes.
And then there's the famous papaya myth. We absolutely have to note the distinction here. Unripe papaya contains high amounts of latex and papain, which actually can trigger uterine contractions. It acts like a green, unformed bud with active sap. But a fully ripe papaya? It contains virtually no latex and is completely safe and nutritious. Once that fruit is fully ripe, the active compounds are naturally neutralized, so you really don't need to fear the ripe fruit. Let's talk about breast cancer risk factors. The data visually strikes down an incredibly dangerous belief, the idea that you are immune to breast cancer if you don't have a family history. Only 10% of risk is hereditary. 90% is lifestyle and environmental. It proves exactly why regular screenings for everyone are absolutely non-negotiable. An electrical fire can happen in your house even if the neighboring homes have never had one, right? You just can't rely on genetics alone. And there are so many dangerous myths to bust here. Not all cancers present as a painful physical lump. Underwire bras, they absolutely do not block lymphatic drainage. Having small breasts doesn't mean you have a lower cancer risk, and deodorants have literally zero proven scientific link to breast cancer. Because some aggressive cancers manifest as subtle skin dimpling instead of a lump, relying on these old wives' tales actively delays life-saving diagnostic screenings. A structural issue in a building doesn't always show up as a huge crack. Sometimes it's just subtle moisture damage. Section 4, the natural is safe trap, the dangerous appeal to nature.
We so often assume traditional remedies are harmless just because they come from the earth. But let's examine why that natural label is incredibly deceptive. The natural fallacy is everywhere. Let's be real. Arsenic and lead are 100% natural, and they are deadly. Buying expensive detox juices or green teas to flush out toxins is medically unnecessary. Why? Because your internal organs, your liver and kidneys, already act like a highly efficient built-in recycling plant. It's the only detox system your body actually requires. Let's look at the reality of unverified remedies. Applying traditional kajal to a newborn's eyes often exposes them to toxic lead. That is literally like using lead-based paint on a crib. Unregulated herbal supplements can cause heavy metal poisoning. High doses of turmeric can wreck your gastrointestinal tract. And grape water for colic, that carries serious contamination risks. Nature produces nourishing foods, sure, but it also produces poisons. Herbal doesn't automatically mean safe. Now, this is a big one: viral infections versus antibiotics. A viral infection operates like a complex digital passcode lock. But an antibiotic, that functions exactly like a physical, jagged metal key. Taking an antibiotic for a viral cold or flu is completely useless. You cannot open a digital passcode with a physical key. Doing so doesn't help you, it just breeds dangerous drug-resistant bacteria. Finally, Section 5, Protecting Your Health Reality, the real cost of fables and delayed medical care. Let's look at the severe, real-world consequences here. India has a silent crisis. Over 101 million individuals are living with diabetes. And many younger people are ignoring early cardiovascular warning signs simply because of age-related myths. Because high blood pressure and early diabetic kidney disease are completely asymptomatic, waiting for physical symptoms means severe, irreversible organ damage has already happened. High blood pressure is like excess air pressure in a tire. It looks totally fine from the outside until the tire suddenly fails on the highway. We simply cannot wait for symptoms. To quote clinical expert Dr. Suman Sethi, the damage that diabetes causes is silent damage, especially in the kidneys. Viewing diabetes as just a sugar problem or a temporary ailment is exactly what leads to thousands of preventable renal failures. It's a systemic issue. It requires proactive, lifelong management, not just some brief diet change until you feel a little bit better. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think about this. By choosing evidence-based clinical science over well-meaning hearsay, you are taking the absolutely most crucial step toward protecting your own health reality. The next time a relative forwards you a miracle cure or warns you that you're going to ruin your knees by drinking water standing up, you now have the tools to decode that myth. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll leave you with this one question. Next time you receive a health tip, will you trust the folklore or the physiology?